At the Sioux City Band, we put more money into our cultural and language programs than any band does. Every time there's a cultural event in our territory, I'm getting these faxes and phone calls across my desk asking for money to support their salmon ceremony, their canoe trek, their hunting trip, whatever it may be. I'm going to run through these really fast. Indian time is just bad manners. Never operate on Indian time. Get rid of it. You'll never become a good worker or a good student if you show up late and operate on this thing that's called Indian time. Every elder I've met, even up in the Arctic, they said, you know what the old Indian time is to the old people? You got there before the event started. In our traditional lifestyles, you couldn't show up late to fish or gather. You got there early or else you'd starve. Indian time is a worn-out excuse. I love this writer, Gilbert Oscabus in Ojibwe. He passed away a few years ago. I always loved reading his articles. There needs to be tough consequences for vandals. That means punishment. In Indian societies, we punished crime. Swiftly, don't give me this touchy-feely left-wing thinking. In Indian traditional concepts, we punished people. You did wrong, you got punished. If you stole something, I don't care how small an item you stole, you were identified in your community as a thief. And that's what I believe we got to get back to, is getting tough on crime in our communities. I hate this Youth Offenders Act, and where the offenders have more rights than the victims. In traditional Native societies, you got your butt kicked if you did something wrong to one of your people. I was on an Alberta reserve. These pictures are only a few months old. And I told that community, I said, even though I'm not from here, what I see on your houses, and this is a store, if you can believe that, this is the community store. Little kids walk past these things every day. And I expected to get some feedback from that First Nation saying, who the heck are you think you coming in and talking to us? I said, you got me here. I'm going to talk the way I'm going to talk. I'm not going to mix my words or not tell you guys what I feel about your community. I told them, you guys have shamed me as a Native person coming here. When I see graffiti and swear words written on your buildings, that shames me. Get rid of it. Tell your leadership to go and buy a can of paint and go spray paint over that crap. This is on their houses in that First Nation community. Little kids grow up with this garbage in some First Nation communities. As I mentioned, these pictures are only a few months old. And if you have this in your communities, get rid of it. Our community should not be sitting there with graffiti and garbage and swear words. And as the elders have told me, all I need to do is drive up to your house. In the condition of your yard, I'll say a lot about you. I don't even need to meet you or say anything to you. When I go to First Nation communities, I want to see two things when I go to that First Nation. There's two First Nations I want to see before I head home. I want to see your band office. I don't need to talk to anybody. I want to see your band office, and I want to see your subdivision. If there's garbage lying around, things are broken and not repaired, that says to me a lot about your community. And our old people have said your house and your yard says a lot about you. That's the first image guests see of you, of your family, of your community. Concept of professionalism proves difficult. This is a Native writer that wrote this. You'll never become a business person. You'll never make a lot of money if you can't act professional and dress professional. Getting passing grades when you haven't earned it. Getting praise when you haven't earned it. Don't praise people if they haven't earned it. Keeping a job when you haven't earned it. Getting awards when you haven't earned it. treating everyone the same when some haven't earned it. In the real world, you earn your way. I love that article. The sad fact is in this country, 1 in 5 Indian groups have financial problems. At the Sioux Indian Band, when I first started, we had 1.5 bookkeepers. Now we have 12, and now we've just hired 2 more. We're training, 3 more. 3 more young Native girls to be bookkeepers, to work in our finance department. I encourage Native youth to get involved in finance, get involved in accounting, get involved in becoming bookkeepers. Because in every organization, the finance department, to me, is the most important department in that organization, because that's the organization that keeps track of the cash. And in business, cash is king. And that quote, cash is king, applies to everything in today's society. And you come to the Sioux Indian Band, you're going to see out of our 15 bookkeepers that work in our finance department, 13 of them are women. If it wasn't for the women that work for the Sioux Indian Band, those that especially work in our finance department, our band would be bankrupt. Our band would be in big trouble like most First Nations are. So my hat's off to the First Nation women that work in finance, those that work in bookkeeping. And I encourage a lot of the young Native girls, get involved in bookkeeping. That's where real leadership is in that finance department. Again, too many Native organizations run into financial problems. Even our national organization, the AFN, has run into financial problems. Native youth, don't get involved in this in your communities. Don't do what a lot of the adults are doing, this Native backstabbing. I have more faith in our youth than I do a lot of the adults in our community, because I think it's going to be the Native youth that are going to get rid of this. Too many of our adults are caught up in old, outdated, worn-out political meanness, and all they bring to the table is toxic relationships that happened 20, 40 years ago. This family doesn't like that family don't get along with this family. And in my community, we have that too, but I think it's going to be our youth. Because when I see our kids playing on the sports field or attending events, I see all different last names hanging around with each other. And they're supporting each other. So I tell my Native youth, don't do what sometimes the Native youth are the real leaders in our community. Because in some cases, the adults are too far gone. I love it when I see Native youth stepping up against drugs and alcohol. As I mentioned, I toured the prisons this summer. We got too many people in prisons. Social assistance is not an answer. I love it when I see what some Native youth are writing in Aboriginal papers. Don't collect welfare if you're an able-bodied young youth. As this article said, able-bodied youth should be cut off. I am asking all those seeking chief and council office to step up to the plate and stop youth from becoming statistics and take an easy way out. Put a stop to youth who are single with no dependents from collecting and receiving these payments when most are able-bodied and are able and willing to work. Manitoba Reserve gets tough on drug users. That's a plague in every one of our First Nations. The leadership needs to get involved and be tough on drug. Just like in the Okanagan, we got a drug problem too. Teen torn by friends getting high and drinking. Every teenager runs through this, the peer pressure of being involved with a hangout crowd. Don't get taken in by these losers that want you to get involved in drinks and drugs and drinking. Teen with nothing to do. This was a forum in BC. This is what this youth said. We make trouble because there is nothing else to do. We have no jobs and there are none available. That again says to me how important my work is and why I can concentrate the majority of my time. I don't run around to these Native meetings. I run around creating jobs and making money. That's what I love doing.